Israel made the decision on Sunday to pull back its troops, most of its ground troops, out of the Gaza Strip into border regions with Israel. This was after a nearly 3-week-long ground campaign. It was a controversial decision, or is proving to be a controversial decision within Israel, because Israelis are left with a feeling of dissatisfaction that Hamas are still raining down rockets on southern Israel, Tel Aviv, and they don't feel that any sort of satisfactory conclusion to this war has happened yet. If you look behind the scenes, if you talk to Israeli officials, I don't think there was ever any question from the beginning that they would go in and take out Hamas. But I think there are calls for this among some right-wing critics of Netanyahu and some members of the public who'd like to see the Islamist group wiped out entirely or disarmed in some form.
I think that one of the things that I think should worry Israelis, although I don't think it actually does, is the enormous gap that's now opened up between Israeli domestic opinion about what's okay and opinion in the wider Western world, to which it looks to for support. So something like 80%, 85% of Israelis support the government in what it's doing, and indeed, if anything, pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, is to be more ferocious, not to be less ferocious.
His critics, including the Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who's a far rightist, were calling for a much more assertive pursuit of Hamas and even the reoccupation of the Gaza Strip. So in the very right-wing current political context in Israel, he's actually seen as a relative moderate. And I think more broadly among the public, including most Israelis, most people who don't have such a firm grasp of the delicate military situation, there's a feeling that this would not be a satisfactory end if he were just to say, mission is accomplished, we've destroyed the tunnels, but leave Hamas with their rockets.
Certainly in Europe, which of course the Israelis have a tendency to dismiss as colored by anti-Semitism and so on, but nonetheless, these are their neighboring democracies. There's very, very little sympathy for the tactics that Israel are using, maybe some sympathy for the dilemma Israel faces, but not for the tactics they're using. And in the United States, I think the support is holding pretty solid, but beneath the surface there's clearly discontent at the White House and at the State Department, and some shifts in public opinion among young people, perhaps not enough to change American policy, but a warning sign. But I think that the Israelis looking at that don't feel under such pressure that they feel compelled to alter course. And if anything, I think that you've seen in the last 10, 20 years a radicalization of Israeli opinion towards the right, not towards the left.
There's a feeling that the U.S. is a weaker player in the Middle East. Egypt is now run by a military government that's aligned with Israel in terms of wanting to crush Hamas, and therefore is not seen by Hamas or by the Palestinians necessarily as a fair broker. So again, it's going to be very hard to get the diplomacy lined up.
One of the things that strikes me is that, having covered many of these outbreaks of violence between Israel and its neighbors over 30 years, is how much of a perennial problem this is. So that I was a student in 1982 when Israel invaded Lebanon against a background of enormous international condemnation. And one thought at the time, well, this has to come to some sort of resolution. And ever since then, there have been innumerable peace efforts and lots of people saying, well, time's running out, they're going to have to fix it. But it never, ever gets fixed. It's actually been 30 years now when I can think of several invasions of Lebanon, 3 invasions of Gaza, 2 intifadas, but the violence between Israel and the Palestinians seems to be one of those immutable facts of international political life. And if you think how much has changed as this problem has just rumbled on, since 1982 in that invasion of Lebanon, you've had the fall of the Berlin Wall, you've had China be completely transformed, you've had the internet be invented, all sorts of changes. You've had 9/11. But this is the one conflict which just seems to be impossible to shift or to change or to fix.